for giving me this opportunity to talk about my country. The session so far has been very scientific, so I'll be deviating. My understanding was that cultural presentation means talking about the culture of country only. So it is dedicated only to my country, and it is fitting well into the ambience of the meeting because we have legends like Dr. Hassan sitting here and we have the future of the spa surgery and nodes being talked about. So we are transcending time. So, Namaskar once again. And I come from India, the city of New Delhi. Apart from being a surgeon, I am a proponent of yoga. And I am working at this hospital, Sir Gangaram Hospital, which is the biggest private sector hospital in north of India. It is the highest accredited hospital by the National Board of Examiners and amongst the private sector hospitals. And it is the first choice of all future surgeons who want to be trained in laparoscopic surgery, as per a national competitive exam held in India. This is the city I belong to. This is the city where this hospital is situated. It is spelled as Delhi and pronounced as Delhi in Western world, but we call it Delhi. Delhi means related to heart, so it is heart of India. It has been known as heart of India because it was demolished 7 times, rebuilt 7 times, so in fact it has a melting pot of 7 civilizations known by different names. The last one was the Mughal Empire, who named the city as Shahjahanabad, and what presently holds is a mixture of the Mughal architecture and the British India. So it is a perfect symbol of cultural harmony. All the faiths in the world are represented in the city, right from Hinduism, Islam, Sikhism, Jainism, Buddhism, Christianity, and the Jewish traditions, Zoroastrianism. You name any belief, it is represented there. Above all, it remains the political capital of my country. It remains the political and diplomatic hub for the international community. And now that India is growing economically, it has become even more relevant for the international community. It has become a busy capital, or one of the busiest capitals in the world. Now, as I said, it is capital of my country. India was known in good old times as the golden bird. In Hindi we call it Sone ki Chidiya, the bird with everything golden about it. It had a GDP of which had 35% share in the world GDP till 1550. It was only after invasion in 1550 by some invaders that the GDP fell down and it became as low as less than 1% of the world GDP by year 1947 when we got our independence. And now at present it is again close to 1% of the world GDP. We suffered a lot of invasions, but we never retaliated. We are very tolerant people. Whosoever came to India settled down in India. It became the birthplace of several faiths, Buddhism as you know, Jainism, Sikhism, and all those who came and invaded us are now living with us as our brothers. I'll seek your permission for this 3 minutes video. This is Swami Vivekananda, the first ambassador the India had to the United States. It was another September 9/11. It was 9/11, 1983 when he landed in Chicago at the World Religious Conference, and he addressed a gathering as brothers and sisters, not ladies and gentlemen. And in those times it was a great statement to make. So please bear with me for 3 minutes. This is the actual recording. I got with a lot of difficulty.
My heart with joy unspeakable to rise in response to the warm and cordial welcome which you have given us. I thank you in the name of the most ancient order of monks in the world. I thank you in the name of the mother of religions. And I thank you in the name of the millions and millions of Hindu people of all classes and sects. My thanks also to some of the speakers on this platform who, referring to the delegates from the Orient, have told you that these men from far-off nations will claim the honor of bearing to different lands the idea of toleration. I am proud to belong to a religion which has taught the world both tolerance and universal acceptance. toleration, but we accept all religions as true. I am proud to belong to a nation which has sheltered the persecuted and the refugees of all religions and all nations of the earth. I am proud to tell you that we have carried in our bosom the purest remnant of the Israelites who came to southern India and took refuge with us in the very year in which their holy temple was shattered to pieces by Roman tyranny. I am proud to belong to the religion which has sheltered and is still fostering the remnant of the grand Zoroastrian nation. I report to you, brethren, a few lines from a hymn which I remember to have repeated from my earliest boyhood, which is every day repeated by millions of human beings. As the different streams, having their sources in different places, all mingle their water in the sea, so, O Lord, the different paths which men take through different tendencies, various though they appear, crooked or straight, all lead to thee. The Brooklyn Convention, which is one of the most august assemblies ever held, is in itself a vindication, a declaration to the world of the wonderful doctrine preached in the Gita. Whosoever comes to me, through whatsoever form, I reach him. All men are struggling through paths which in the end lead to me. Sectarianism, bigotry, and its foreign descendant, fanaticism, have long possessed this beautiful earth. They have filled the earth with violence, drenched it often and often with human blood, destroyed civilization, and sent whole nations to despair. Had it not been for these horrible demons,
So these were the words which were very prophetic, and in India we are still fighting with all these themes, but we continue to live on in harmony. Coming on to philosophy which governs the India, it is largely governed by Vedic philosophy, which has been beautifully imbibed by everybody who settled in India, irrespective of the religion. So it has nothing to do with religion, whether it was Jewish tradition or even the Islam in India has the highest level of tolerance, what is known as Sufism in Islam. Christianity of India is again very tolerant, and it's doing a lot of good work in India by way of missionary hospitals and missionary schools and education. It's been birthplace of Buddhism, Sikhism, Jainism, and in common parlance, all this philosophy has been known as Hindutva. It's not the religion, it's a philosophy. What is it? We call it, it's not negation of your mental faculties. It's not surrendering your idea to think or surrendering your mental faculties. It is a rigorous disciplining of mind, and it's a pursuit of relentless truth, the ultimate truth. Because science is also the search of truth. The beauty is that one may not believe in God, like I may say I don't believe in God, but still be a follower of Hindutva, because it is only truth, nothing else. Because we have known denial of God, but we have not known denial of truth. Truth, pursuit of truth, as we do in scientific papers, like we have a background to think about hypothesis formation, then we write down materials and methods. So that way you can pursue the truth, these are the chakras in life described according to the Vedic philosophy. I correlate them to an article from December 2007 issue of Annals of Surgery, which talks about evolution of surgeon and why residents should choose to become surgeons. Because this article says the surgery is the ideal carrier which lifts a man from the base to the apex of the pyramid. The pyramid he talks about is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. When as human beings we start from basic physical needs, that is our eating, water, sleep, comfort and things like that. Once we achieve that, we go for social security, and then we go for a membership in a professional group or society. Then we challenge ourselves, we try to innovate, we be creative, and finally we lead to self-realization. And this article says, this is the definition of a mentor in the surgical discipline. A mentor should have no competing agendas. That is when the surgeon has reached higher realization. That is the point, that is the stage where he can teach and train people. So that was the basis of this article, which is talking about surgery only. This Maslow's pyramid correlates beautifully with the phases in human evolution or life of a human being in Vedic philosophy, rising from basic needs to higher realization or pursuit of truth. So what is this basic truth? It's known as good action or karma. This is the foundation is, if something is good for me, generally good for me, it's bound to be good for others. So I should do to others, as the Bible also says, do unto others as you will like your others to do to yourself. So like Maslow's pyramid, our Indian philosophy raises us from, like people used to call us pagans. So we have come up from nature worshipping because people feared floods, earthquakes, lightning, they started worshipping nature. Then they formed idols to notify them. We became idol worshippers. Then finally, the human beings became conscious of pervading energy all around that. That is the third level according to the Maslow's pyramid. Then meditation, that is thinking and thought formation. Then awakening, and finally self-realization. Self-realization is doing good karma, that is doing good to others as you would like others to do to you, and not thinking of harming anybody. Non-violence. The previous speaker showed a photograph of Mahatma Gandhi, the apostle of non-violence. Non-violence is not physical in our philosophy. It is even in your thought, there should be no violation of anybody else's thought. So non-violence is truly in thinking and pursuit of your knowledge and truth and realization. So it elevates, that is why we are very tolerant. Finally, realization in local language, Sanskrit, is known as Aham Brahmasmi, which literally translates to meaning I am God. It may seem it's an arrogant statement, it is not. What it means is, like if I am worshipping God, what I expect from God, if I behave like that to others, I am bound to do no harm to others. That is the basis of our scientific or surgery, that is primum non nocere. Don't first do no harm. So if I feel as responsible as being God, I will not harm the other human being or the patient. This pursuit of truth has been possible in our philosophy through a mentor only, which is known as guru in our language. As I said, mentor should have no competing agenda, only then he can be a true mentor. There is a saying in Hindi that says, like both God and teacher, both are present in front of me. Whom should I adore, love and respect more? I think I should respect my mentor or guru the more, because without my mentor or guru, I would have been lost on my journey to the God. So guru or mentor has been given higher preference in relation to God as far as this pursuit of science and truth is concerned. Who are these mentors in our lives? When we are born as kids, our parents are natural mentors. They don't have any competing agenda. Our welfare is their only motive. When we are young, then action and sex, that is our guru in Hindu philosophy, because your wife becomes your partner. It's not only for pleasure, you create, you nurture a life, and you get a chance to become a mentor yourself to your children. Finally, when you seek or go for realization of any science or any philosophy, whether it is surgery, medicine, you need a teacher or a guru. So, and it is said, if you are ready, only then guru will appear. And how much you can gain from your mentor or guru depends on how much bigger goal you are carrying to beg your mentor for. So, place of guru or mentor, these are my parents at the time of my marriage, my first mentors. Then this is another famous temple in India talking about the utility of kama or sex in higher realization. So this is how I was carefree, I got married, I got responsible, I felt responsible, I had children, then I have the chance to be mentor to my children. These have been my gurus, that is on left side Swami Dhirendra Brahmachari, my guru in yoga. The Mother Teresa, we were fortunate, me and Bhatia, we are from the same batch, to be blessed by Mother Teresa. Then the other gurus in other slides. And finally, when I entered surgical sciences, my guru was Professor Narendra Singh, who unfortunately is no more with us. He was a person who imbibed in me the basics of surgical sciences. And my present guru, as you can see, I am sitting with this Professor K.C. Mahajan. He is chairman of academics of my institution. He continues to guide and bless me. I am showing all these to show that in our philosophy, guru is most important. And especially in a surgical science, as the article in Annals of Surgery. And in last year, there have been several articles why a surgeon should be proud of being a surgeon, why residents should become surgeons, the inexplicable bond in archives of surgery. All these articles talk about that surgical science is different from medical sciences. As Halstead said, a physician needs a good head and heart, but a surgeon needs head, heart and a good hand. So I say we need a fourth H also. I have written an article which has been accepted for publication in surgical endoscopy on this. The fourth H should be holistic responsibility. A surgeon cannot divorce himself from society. Surgeon cannot divorce himself from the welfare of patient, not only in terms of disease, because surgery has a burden on the family, society, and his mental fears of resumption to activity. Although laparoscopic surgery has helped us in achieving that, but in India people are still skeptical. They don't, it is not that they don't want to return to work. It has been imbibed in their mind that after surgery, your life and body is not normal. So, and my gurus, especially Professor K.C. Mahajan, has blessed me, sent me here, and to pass on, as I said, I don't use any energy sources in my laparoscopic surgery. I am doing breast surgery endoscopically, I am doing varicocele surgery extraperitoneally, and I am closing all my ventral hernia defects laparoscopically. I will be talking about them in my future slides, future presentations. So India has left its footprint on the warmth of the Mother Nature. India is an important country, it has been a spiritual guide, it will continue to be so. We are passive, but we are not inactive. We listen to the world, take action appropriately, we are not aggressive. We may be harmless as a statue, but we are continuously watching, listening, and imbibing good philosophies and neurosciences. So, as I said, we have provided thought leadership, and I am sure India will continue to provide this spiritual thought leadership. We don't like aggression. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Dr. Agarwal. I think your talk was excellent.
Thank you.